Can you believe just 5 days to the general election? Good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra. I am Ann Kiguta. We are taking you around the country, keeping a lookout for politicians as they make their last pitch to you, the public, seeking your votes. Very shortly, we'll be able to tell you what Jubilee hopes to achieve in Wote Ukambani today, and even later as they head to the coast. It's part of the president's sprint, if you like, for these last few campaigning days left till Saturday, to reach as many of you as is possible as he takes his message across the country. But we're also taking you to Stephen Leto, who's in Kapkatet, Kericho. He's following the NASA Brigade. We are talking to him shortly. Mumbi Waroi is here in Nairobi at the Intercontinental Hotel, where the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, which runs the Kenya Daima campaign, will be addressing a presser this morning on matters elections. And in studio, I will be joined by Sundra, who is a governance expert. Charles Munyui is a political analyst. Dr. Sam Kamau, also a political analyst, and Gabriel Muthuma, equally a political analyst. We're talking about these last dash for your votes, and of course the very latest opinion polls. So that and more coming up in the next 3 hours. But let's start by taking you on the campaign trail this morning. Stephen Leto is standing by and will be telling us what NASA is hoping to achieve in Kapkatet, Kericho today as it seeks to make forays in a Jubilee stronghold area. Good morning. Tell us more.
Well, good morning to you, Ann Kiguta, there in studio. Like you put it, you can't believe it that it's only 5 days left to the general election, and Kenyans now will be headed to the polls to choose who they will want to steer the wheel ahead of the August 8 polls. But what we are doing today is following the NASA campaign trail that is today covering 3 counties, that is Kericho County, Bomet County, and also Narok County. Remember, Kericho and Bomet are perceived to be Jubilee Party strongholds, and Narok County is a swing vote. And today, their first rally, currently, Musalia Mudavadi and Isaac Ruto are in Olbutio in Bomet County. Before now, they will have their first joint rally in Kericho, which will be staged at Kapkatet grounds. Remember, Kapkatet ground is historical in this side of town, and that is where the National Super Alliance is taking its first rally today at around 10 or 11 a.m. thereabout. And after that, they will split into 2 teams. One team will be led by their presidential candidate Raila Odinga, who will be taking some of the principles, including Chama cha Mashinani leader Isaac Ruto. They will be headed to Mau Forest. They are going to take on the Mau politics there. And another team comprising of Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Moses Wetangula, they will be headed to the south. They will be staging some rallies in Kilgoris, that is in Transmara. And also thereafter, they will be all converging at the historic Suswa grounds in Narok County. That will mark the end of their day today. And so they will be traversing across all those 3 counties to ensure that they convince their supporters and those who are undecided on which side of the coalition to vote for the National Super Alliance presidential candidate. Remember, the polls released yesterday showed that the National Super Alliance had made some inroads in the Rift Valley, and that is what they are trying to do to ensure that they cement their little support they could be getting here at the South Rift region particularly. But several issues are expected to come up, the issues of Mau Forest, the issues to do with land and all that. Remember, them going to Narok County, they will be touching on those 2 issues, which are a hot political issue, which, for instance, the Mau Forest, there has been a lot of issues about the invasion into the Mau Forest, as well as evicting people who already live there to move out of the forest without compensation therewith. And so that is what we expect to get from the Raila Odinga and his team there in the Mau Forest. And on the other side, we are expecting the issues of farming, the issue of farming, sugarcane, as well as maize and tea, to take center stage in Kalonzo Musyoka campaign in Kilgoris and the entire Transmara. and also the tour in Chapalungu, Olbutio in Bomet County. That also we expect some of hot political issues. Remember, Chama cha Mashinani is establishing itself in this particular region to ensure that it eats into the Jubilee Party, and Deputy President William Ruto serve political support in this particular side of the South Rift. So we have all those stopovers and all those main rallies covered, and we'll be also be very keen on the historic Suswa ground, which the National Super Alliance is terming as the Suswa Declaration, 5 days to the general election. And remember, they are also rallying their supporters to come up in large numbers to ensure that they turn up and vote on the August of 8. The issue of adopt a polling station, and that what they are terming as protecting their vote, is what the National Super Alliance is also keen on, because they have been facing a lot of resistance from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, as well as from the acting Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, who has been opposed to the National Super Alliance plans to go and establish a 5-member team that will be guarding their vote upon casting the ballot. But yesterday they were very categorical that despite all that, they will proceed with their plans to have 5 people man that polling station, and even going a notch higher, calling on their supporters, particularly the youth, to ensure that after they vote, they do not go beyond 400 meters past the polling station. So that, of course, is a matter that we are keeping a close eye on to see how that develops and how the National Super Alliance is going, to adopt the polling stations, and most importantly, to ensure that all their strongholds turn up in large numbers to vote for their candidate Raila Odinga. But tomorrow it is a sprint, a final dash, like you put it, in their home stage ahead of Tuesday. Tomorrow they are doing 4 counties. All are their strongholds. Number 1, they will be in Kisumu. After 2 hours, they will cross over to Siaya. 2 hours in Siaya, they will be in Kakamega, and 2 hours in Kakamega, they will cross over to the border county of Busia. That is where they will conclude their day tomorrow. But that is just painting a picture to you of how intense the campaign of the presidential ballot is getting 5 days to the general election. For today, Kapkatet, Suswa, Mau, and Kilgoris will be bringing you all the details, all the politics that will taking place at that particular region. For now on, I hand you back to studio, but later on we'll link up again to see how the NASA presidential campaign trail is shaping up. Back to you in studio, Anne.
Thank you very much, Stephen Leto, for that comprehensive report. We look forward to hearing from you throughout this broadcast. And remember, of course, we are standing by to bring you an update from our Jackie Maribe. She's currently en route somewhere in the skies on her way to Ukambani, where the president is expected to be campaigning this morning, and later we'll be joining them also in the coast region, where they will be seeking to make a last-minute appeal for votes. We'll be looking to them very shortly. But now let's listen in here in Nairobi to the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, who are addressing matters elections from the Intercon.
Every stakeholder and citizen to realize their highest aspirations. For these reasons, Kenya Daima is a strong and unapologetic advocate for peace, peace being a total absence of war, conflict, displacement, violence, or disruption to lives and livelihoods. It is in this context that we strongly condemn the killing of the IEBC ICT manager, Chris Msando, who was found dead on the 31st of July 2017. The suspicious circumstances surrounding his death are of deep concern to us all, and as such, we urge that his death be thoroughly investigated and the perpetrators of this crime be found, tried, and punished expeditiously. Kenya Daima reiterates its full support for the agencies that are tasked with running the Kenya national elections, and stands firm that such agencies must be accorded the freedom and latitude to carry out their functions without external interference from individuals or institutions with vested interests. And as we inch towards the 8th of August, we also ask that the IEBC is allowed to conduct its functions without threats, intimidation, or any form of external disruption from any interested parties, political or otherwise. The credibility and fairness of the elections can only be achieved if the electoral custodians and the referees, along with the enforcers of the law, are given the space and security in which to conduct their business. Further, we ask that the IEBC, having put in place all measures necessary for this election, to execute their duties and functions fully and confidently to deliver the credible elections in good. We also ask that Kenyans, politicians, and all stakeholders allow the courts to exercise their functions and that the judiciary act with impartiality and deliver justice for dispute cases brought before the courts during that period. We ask that Kenyans should turn out in large numbers to vote and do so peacefully. We also urge all voters to kindly leave the polling stations after voting as we wait the outcome of the elections. Only the legally accredited individuals should stay at the polling stations and continue to work in their official capacities. That Kenyans avoid sharing divisive comments on social media, but should turn to accredited and credible sources for information and updates about the elections. And the media exercise utmost professionalism in their delivery of information by ensuring that all news shared with the public is factual, accurate, and non-sensational. We also ask that the elections should not be a reason for the disruption of businesses, organizations, and day-to-day services. All businesses and service providers should stay open before the elections.
All right, we apologize for the dropping of that link, but you were listening to Patrick Obath of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. He is in charge of the Kenya Daima campaign, which is their governance watch program, if you like, and has said various things. We'll be talking about that very shortly, but let me bring in my panel, introducing them to you. Sundra Chola is a governance expert, Charles Munui, a political analyst, as is Dr. Sam Kamau and Gabriel Muzuma, and good morning to you all, and welcome to the program. So various things have been said in the last few minutes that have been on the air, and I want to unpack them one by one. Let's start with the message from KEPSA this morning. First, condemning the killing of Chris Msando, IEBC's IT head, and saying basically it was a suspicious death. There should be a speedy conclusion into the matter and justice be served. Your thoughts, Sandra?
Thank you, Anne. I believe that's an issue that still remains controversial in various fora. However, as has been said, I think it's important for us to ensure that we are waiting for processes, we are waiting for investigations, and as been seen and being spread around social media at the moment is that the police are making headway. But that being said, it's important to reiterate that it is an issue that is saddening, and especially coming at a time when the political temperatures are pretty high. And so perhaps what we need moving forward is a good level of tolerance, a good level of patience, and a good level of trust in our institutions to ensure that moving forward that each and every particular individual related to the elections, or even as voters, we are safe and secure moving forward for the elections.
Right. Charles, let me come to you. What do you think the impact, if any, of will be of Chris's death to this election?
Chris was an important component to this. He was heading a actually a very important docket in as far as IEBC is concerned. With all due respect to the fact that the boss is back there, there is an IT the director is there. So with a lot of humility, I think my concern right now and that of Kenyans would have been whether the systems were compromised, and I think that assurance has come from all levels of IEBC, including the chairman and the team generally. And the assurance that no password has yet been given to any employees of IEBC, including Chris. And it's really sad that the gentleman had to pass away. Whatever the motivation, whatever happened, all Kenyans would like to empathize with the family, especially, and more importantly, to know who would do this, who would act this way, who would kill this gentleman, together with a lady who actually comes from my constituency. Very sad, 21 years old. So I think moving forward, there should be better protection for individuals in these levels of oppositions in terms of employment, especially at a sensitive time around now, especially when Kenyans are going for the first time into a fully electronic voting system.
So in terms of impact, I hear you saying none to the systems, but in the broader ecosystem of the elections and just that atmosphere of calm. What are your thoughts on the impact of his death?
Of course there is an impact, because people get demoralized. People want to feel that this is politically motivated. People want to believe that was someone in one side of the political divide did not want that gentleman serving in that particular position, which might not necessarily be true. But perception in politics, unfortunately, sometimes becomes reality. And I think that is the assurance that IEBC must keep giving to Kenyans at every available opportunity, so that they don't see this as a scenario whereby his passing away, his demise, is going to influence the outcome of the elections. I think that assurance, if they keep it to themselves by way of saying they told us yesterday, they must keep on telling Kenyans that there was nothing that was done in terms of the systems, in terms of the preparedness. We are moving forward. Much as this is a very, very sad day for the country, the IEBC and the families of Quiz, I think that assurance being given consistently for the next 1 or 2, 3 days, everyone should be okay.
All right, Dr. Kamau, you've heard Kepsa calling for those speedy investigations, trial, and justice being served, as it were. And the police will tell you that investigations take the time that they will take, to reach whatever conclusion. And you were on the program just 2 days ago, and you heard from the police spokesman that in cases where even there isn't, per se a conclusion of the matter, it still goes on before the courts as an inquest. What are your thoughts, despite the fact that it will take the time it will take to do a thorough investigation, vis-a-vis the need, in the public eye to have justice being seen to be done and being done expeditiously?
Thank you, Anne. I think one of the issues that has come out today, and Sundra has alluded to that, is the fact that if we were to believe what the newspapers are saying, there has been quite some progress made on that front. And I think part of what Kepsa has said, despite just questioning the circumstances surrounding his death, they have also expressed confidence in the institutions that are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring investigations are done and the culprits are brought to book. Having said that, I think the most unfortunate thing about this particular issue is it happened at the wrong time. The timing was actually quite bad. And what's happening is that, of course, there are a lot of theories and rumors and innuendos that are going around, particularly on the social media platforms. But I think one of the issues that can help the country, of course, is the assurance that we are seeing from the police. They seem to be moving with speed. And I think one of the reports indicated that there are already 3 people in custody, but that is yet to be confirmed by the police. But I think it's appearing in one of the newspaper reports. What we are looking forward to is that we stop the rumor peddling that is going around on social media and any unwarranted politicization of this particular issue. But the bigger concern, of course, is this happening so close to the elections. I think the issue of security for everyone has come back firmly on the agenda. I think it's something that we may need to consider, and the assurance, of course, from the police, besides the IBC telling us that they know they are prepared for the elections and there has been no interference with their systems. I also think security of the ordinary Mwananchi, because as we have seen, there are concerns that have come up. I think this death shook most people and scared people who may not even necessarily have a crucial role in the elections, but just feeling afraid and scared because of the environment that we are in. And I think that would be my concern. But I would also want to express confidence that there is progress that will be made in regard to this, the DPP, the police, and everyone else who is involved in the investigation process.
Gabriel, even as we wind up, the Kenya Daima comments regarding the death of Nsando and investigations, etc. They have gone ahead to say that not only should Kenyans, especially on social media, desist from the rumor mill and spreading more rumors, but they've also gone to say that they are hoping that their businesses should remain open throughout this electioneering period. What are your thoughts on that, given the fact that the entire country seems to grind to a halt 2 days to the election and remains halted until God knows when?
Thanks, and you're totally right. You can even feel it when you walk around and you go to offices. There's an element of lethargy at this point. Nobody wants to, to give in the energy that is required to be able to be productive. Everybody is looking at, at August 8th, and you can even start seeing the domino effects of what I call bad politics. People are leaving our major cities and towns, heading to Mashinani, where most of them would argue that they feel safer there. You wonder if these people are registered in that particular city, is this going to affect the turnout in our polling stations? So we have to wait and see about that. But you can tell, I agree with your question that there's an element of lethargy. People are not giving it what it takes to be productive. And I agree with Patrick Obath that this is the time where we have to give the institutions that are mandated to carry a particular task to be able to do what they have to do and to give it all they have. So I think we have to wait and see how it turns out, but we have to continue and encourage our people to come out and do what they have to do to be productive. It does not end with this with this election, and I think it should set precedence. It should set pace in the coming elections. I don't think elections should be holding us, should hold the country ransom. And I think it's where we've taken politics. We've given politics this field and framework that it is politics that drives us. It should not be that. I think we have so much to do between now and August 8th. And let me agree again with Kepsa. Politics will come and go. So we need to do what we have to do to keep our country moving ahead.
All right, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about the campaign trail, even as we're waiting on pictures for you from Ukambani, where Jubilee will be seeking to make forays. But earlier we took you to Kapkatet, where the NASA brigade will be, and let me now turn the attention of my panel to that report by Stephen Leto. One of the key areas, I beg your pardon, Sandra, that he talked about in his report would be the impact of the politicking that has happened in these areas. He cited issues like the Mau Forest compensation, CCM, Chama Cha Mashinani, Isaac Ruto's party, also trying to dislodge Jubilee and make forays into the larger Rift region. He talked about if we move down to the Transmara areas, farming, the adopt a polling station policy by the NASA brigade, in Narok, the issue of title deeds. These have been the key messages that we've had from NASA in this parts, in Kericho, Bomet and Narok, where they will be today. What do you think the impact of those messages will be on the public? Is this what they need to hear, and are these messages provocative enough to get out the vote in the next 5 days?
I agree with you, and with every political process, you realize you have to frame your messages in a way that speaks to the hearts and minds of the electorate. And I think that is exactly what NASA is doing in trying to identify what are the issues that the people in this area want addressed, and how can they address them best, or rather pitch themselves as the party or the individuals or the group that is able to address these issues moving forward. So indeed, the issues of the Mau Forest are legitimate for those people who are affected by it. Then the electoral process as well. We've also mentioned Isaac Ruto's party, which from what we've had before has been making inroads. We also saw today from a poll by Infotrack that has termed the Uasin Gishu areas as a stronghold. So of course there are a number of analyses that can be made here and there, and I'll start with the Isaac Ruto presence within the NASA coalition. Given he's a very strong candidate within the area, and the fact that he's managed to quote unquote go against the grain has ensured to a great level that he has a good number of supporters, and he's advancing NASA's agenda within the region. However, it still begs to question, given that one, he hasn't been very active within the party lately or within the coalition lately, and so that begs the question whether he is as strong as he was once predicted to be as one of the principals within the NASA coalition, and what impact this has within the region. And secondly, it goes to our voting patterns generally. Even in the other areas where you might realize that there are issues that there are certain people cry about certain issues, so to speak, but then our election culture boils down to a point where you vote as a block, you vote as a community, and one thing that people are saying all over is that it could be, people could be having different views here and there, and even the polls have shown these people could be having different views, but then we are still tied to voting as a block. And one of the things that people are saying is that Western Gishu region, the Rift Valley region, is locked to Jubilee. But that being said, I think it's important for us to move on with the elections, and it is commendable that the parties are moving forward in terms of trying to address the issues and pitch themselves for the next election.
Okay, let's go a little in-depth on that, Charles. In particular, with the key messages of NASA, and Sandra has said that the issue of malforest and compensation would be an issue. This may be a bit of a thorny issue, or the ghosts of Mao, if you like, coming to haunt the former Prime Minister and now NASA presidential candidate. Yet at the same time, he has the advantage of having wooed to his end, you know, a man from the region, Isaac Ruto. Is he the man who would be able to shift the narrative around this malforest issue, that no, it was not Raila's fault, you know, for pushing for these evictions at that time? Or is the narrative now that it is government that did not follow through and compensate? What do you think the message would be, and what would the impact of Isaac Ruto be on the residents of the region as a kind of maybe calming or assuring figure that their concerns would be addressed in a possible NASA government in a way that they were not addressed before?
The former Prime Minister is a good spin doctor. He knows the right things to say at the right time, in the right places. And I'm sure that is something he's going to spin, irrespective of the fact that he had a problem in that particular region when that issue was at its peak, and he was accused of being the person behind removing these individuals from that particular area. More importantly, I think we must appreciate that the politics of 2022 is still at play here. We cannot ignore the fact that Ruto is a likely flag bearer for Jubilee. In fact, actually, the Jubilee has come out very clearly that he's a flag bearer, and anybody who comes into that path, or the path of Ruto, trying to disorganize that particular aspect, is going to get into trouble from the individuals from that particular region. So I'm seeing, irrespective of what happens, this might not necessarily be an area that Raila is looking into in terms of getting a lot of votes. But of course, being an area where he has a supporter or an individual in the NASA national team, as it were, in the name of Isaac Ruto, he must be present. Don't forget, Ruto again is vying as a governor, so it's also fair to show to be there in solidarity with him. But I think, to me, it might not change a lot, and I'm not seeing even Ruto has a problem retaining the position that he has as a governor of that area. Now, moving into the other aspect that was discussed about NASA and its campaign, and especially the adopter polling station. I am not sure I understand what is happening here, because having had clarity from IBC on the number of people that should be, and the respective individuals that should be in the polling center, and especially inside where the polling is happening, especially that. Now, moving forward, now we are talking about advising the youth not to move away from the 400-meter, you know, distance that has been provided for in law in terms of how close you should be to the polling center. What do you want people to hang around there to do? And more importantly, the question that begs is, even if someone is stealing your votes seriously, will they steal them from your strongholds, or will they steal them from their respective strongholds? So what is it that you're protecting? Are you really protecting your votes, or are you intimidating people into not coming into those particular stations to vote? Or is it that you're planning on doing something yourself and you want that buffer in terms of the youth hanging around the station so that nobody will be able to stop you from doing what you're planning on doing? I think that explanation should come out clearly so that people know where is this going exactly.
But I think NASA have come out to say that they will you know, adhere to the regulations in terms of where people can stand. But yes, I suppose there is yet something to be said about just people milling about. But it's not illegal. You know, past a certain point, it's not illegal.
It is not. It's actually not illegal, but it's only fair, because supposing word from whatever source, and you know how rumor can spread, that someone says people are stealing from that particular station, and you have no control from that point on. I think that's my concern right there.
Okay, I hear you. Dr. Kamau, move us forward, and In particular, let's talk about Isaac Ruto. And you had Sundra say that we're seeing him a little bit quieter now. He joined NASA with a bang, and thereafter, there's been a bit of a tethering, a bit of silence on his end, even though he does take part in some of their rallies. What do you agree with? The assessment of Charles that it's not certain that he's going to get back his own seat, leave alone being a force to reckon with, if you like, in the larger rift?
Well, definitely Governor Ruto has managed to build quite a political stature for himself, and we admire him for one or two things. He's a witty politician, he's charismatic one way or the other. But I think on this particular one, and I think looking at history, the Kalenjin nation tends to vote as one. If you look at the voting patterns in the past, and I don't think that is just about to change. And looking at the whole NASA arrangement, when you look at it, I think Governor Ruto has recognized and knows actually the realities of how the Kalenjin nation tends to vote, and I think he's more concerned about retaining or maintaining his seat. And he understands that he has a battle on his hands in terms of the strong challenge he's getting from Laboso. And I think that is why he's not been so prominent or so visible in the national campaigns, because he understands he needs to go on the ground. There's also the situation whereby he might manage to convince the people of Bomet to vote for him, but that does not necessarily translate into vote for NASA at the presidential level. I think we have seen instances, for example, where you'll see people voting for a different presidential candidate and a different candidate at the lower levels. And I think that is what Governor Ruto is trying to focus on. The other thing is, and I think it's something Gabriel has always insisted, communities will try to look and see which coalition best represents our interest and where are we closest to power. And I think there is a likelihood that Bomet, the residents of Bomet, would recognize or maybe appreciate that the deputy president is closer to getting their nation to the presidency than Governor Ruto stands within the NASA coalition. And I think because of that, Governor Ruto was brought in more for aesthetics and making the campaign appear much more national, and also to create the narrative that perhaps there could be some changes taking place within the Rift region. But the other issue I wanted to look at is in terms of messaging. I think when it's a bit hypocritical when you go to the one side of Mau, that is the Mar region or the Narok side, you are talking about Mau, but you have a different message when you go to the Kalenjin side. I think there is need for consistency, and I think when you look at the messaging that the NASA teams tend to give for different regions, they will go, for example, to Nyeri and say that we do not have a problem with you, but then they go to another particular region, for example in Kisii, and say that your IDPs were not properly compensated, you are given 50,000 and those ones were given 400,000. So that different messaging can create a bit of confusion, because I think the best approach would be, we understand what are your issues, we understand what are your problems and struggles, and this is the plan we have for addressing them. So there's a bit of hypocrisy in the messaging in terms of what is being told to the people on the lower Mau or on the Narok side and what is being told to the people on the other side, which can create confusion and does not show genuineness in the whole thing. I think it is just a play or a gimmick for getting votes. So in the wider equation, I don't think that the Kalenjin nation will vote differently this time and divide their votes. There are still, and I think Governor Ruto understands, Bomet is still predominantly a Jubilee zone. It's only that there could be quite a number of votes that could go towards his way for the governor position, but that is yet to be seen on August 9th, once the vote is cast.
Okay, and just before we take a break, Gabriel, let's talk a little bit about the other areas where they'll be campaigning today. Beyond Kericho and Bomet, they'll be going to the Kilgoris, Transmara area, Narok as well, and the larger Narok, if you like. And part of the issues, of course, there deal with title deeds, and we've heard them talk a lot about the land question, the farmer concerns in these areas. What has been your assessment of NASA's messaging for these areas, and do you believe, as many within the NASA camp opine, that the larger Ma areas are not even swing areas, that this is a done deal, they are very firmly NASA?
Let me begin by quoting something that Sandra has just said, and this is when you realize we have a problem with what you call spin doctors, and probably what you could say bad politics. So you just say something so that you're saying something to say, and then it's more like you want to present an agenda and have these other people play catch up. So what NASA, they package things properly. I agree with Dr. Kamau when he says from area to area or from county to county, they've been spinning a message, some which could actually augur with the people down, like in Meru. When they go to Meru, you hear the issue they are bringing is the Mira and the way the government has done nothing to this industry. They let you guys down. You know, they should have represented you well. When they go to Kisii, they say you don't have roads, and it doesn't matter whether the roads are there or not. This is a spin. You saw the other day, and actually we may just, you know, deviate a little bit, but it's following the same narrative where NASA leaders were saying that the KDF spokesman had gone missing, and they went ahead, you know, a step further to even say that that person has been killed. So, you know, all of a sudden to see this man appear, to see this is a narrative, and that does not lead anywhere, but they don't care about that. This is how you spin things. The president has actually issued so many title deeds, but again, it doesn't matter. Those title deeds, that's just a show. What do you need more than somebody giving you a piece of sanctity to your land, where you can even go to the bank and get a loan and be able to develop? That to them is not an issue. But you see, where they are coming from,
isn't politics really about that spin? It's about being able to capture the imagination and the emotions of the people that you're speaking to, and in this way I'm not talking about the scandal surrounding you know, the issue surrounding KDF, etc., not giving factual information or incorrect information, but really it's about coloring it, you know.
But yes, from one end you could do that, but again, you don't make it your core agenda. People will start not believing you, and this is where, you know, NASA are finding themselves. You're saying things in one or to one community, or you're saying something in one stadium, and somebody comes and proves you wrong. Okay, so you start. Well, there are so many things you don't believe, like the issues of title deeds. I mean, to me, and that's an instrument that when somebody who owns land and had not had that instrument, when you receive it, this is something that can make a lot of change. So I would not dramatize it or say it's an exercise in futility. Say we can do better. And you see, this is where I think when you talk about the powers of an incumbent, this is where you find yourself, you have to play catch as an opposition, because you are coming from a narrative, selling a narrative that I will do, and a government that's saying we have done, we will do more. So yes, probably you can see they are one step lower, but they are coming up in spinning. But you see, the spinning can work for you, or at times can work against you. And in this time, there are areas where the spin is working, and there are areas where the spin is not working, like Narok. You know, you can talk much about the land, but when you have an administration which has gone a step forward to issue title deeds, when you know 5 years removed, when you had that ministry, you did not do that. So you're trying to heap, you know, blame and say, you know, I wish we had the time, we would have done it, but you had the time, you did not do it.
And this
so
is where Gabriel, I hear you yet, you know, still have more questions, because even if you talk about land is successfully always an emotive issue, regardless of what has or has not been done. So when you ask whether or not the spin is working, then it's clearly working. And I'll go a step further to say that, you know, when I speak to a lot of these politicians, specifically from the NASA side of the CAF, they will tell you that they are saying what they know the electorate wants to hear. It is not we say, and you know, that may also be just a politician, you know, politicking, but by and large there is this sort of consensus that we are saying what people want us to say.
True, but you see also in a place like Mombasa, Jubilee have been able to raise their stakes because of issuing title deeds, 3 million and counting. You cannot downplay that. As much as we agree it's an emotive issue, there are people who are saying, hang on a minute, at least I have this instrument that can allow me now to know that this place is mine, this is where I'll be buried. It's better than not having. So kudos to them for being able to do that. Now, how can you spin that you did not want, I mean, that title deed is fake, you should not have gotten it, because that's what they are spinning. They said once we come in, we will look at all those title deeds. In fact, that is a very bad spin, because you are losing numbers by the day.
And yet everybody goes, hey! That's
the price of our instrument.
You know, Dr. Kamal, let me just bring you in very quickly with a quick comment before we get to the top of the hour on the same, because whereas in principle, Gabriel, I agree with you that you know, spin really is wrong, isn't it? It's cheekiness on the part of the politician. We wish that everybody was campaigning on fact, but they do what they do, and at the end of the day, they do get the votes. If you're to look at the latest numbers that we have from InfoTrack, Raila is up at 49%, Uhuru at 48%, Ipsos, Raila at 44%, Uhuru at 47%. So if we can just focus on the NASA part of it, and I know we'll go in depth in the second hour. My point being, Dr. Kamau, that whether spin is right, spin is wrong, whichever way you're spinning it, there's over 45%, at least we can agree from both polls, that people agree with the message.
Well, spin, of course, or propaganda is an important part of politics, and I can tell you, of course, anything that NASA is saying in any particular region is informed, of course, by some kind of intelligence they have gathered, and that they think these things would resonate well with the ground. Of course, we know in 2013 the issue of land was a key factor for NASA in the coast region, but I think on this particular one, as Gabriel is trying to show, if I have received a title deed which guarantees, or at least is confirmation, that I own a piece of land, versus somebody who is telling me that there is still an issue with land, I think that is the kind of message that is struggling, and that is why for Narok it's still a battleground where people, of course, in their consciences, they are struggling between the two messages that are coming to them. Jubilee says, we have done this, we have sorted out issues, we have brought development, we have done all these things. On the other hand, NASA shows them that with the 4.5 years of Jubilee's government, you are still worse off than you are, and there are still more issues. And that is why you look at the issue of Narok, I think we are looking at it as a battleground. Who is winning? But we also have to remember, Anne, when you talk about propaganda or spin, it doesn't necessarily go to the mind. It is targeted at the heart.
Exactly.
Lies and propaganda target the heart. So at the heart of it, there is a battle, like I said, within their minds. And we know that truth or fake news always outpace the truth. But in these closing 5 days of the campaigns, I think we have seen a lot of effort targeting and trying to help people who are shaky or undecided in the battleground areas. But at the end of the day, they have to look at development that is tangible, things that they have seen that have been done, versus what has been promised. What is it that they are likely to vote for? But again, when you talk about polls, and I believe is what we are just about to look at, do polls reflect or affect public opinion? And are we using polls to actually show this is where public opinion is, or are we using that to manipulate and try to show people things that are not necessarily the way they are?
We'll get into that very shortly, but let me just bring you up to speed with a bit of news that we're receiving. The Communications Authority is cautioning Kenyans to be wary of fake news sites. What do you know? Cropping up ahead of the ahead of the election. They say that they are monitoring social media to weed them out. In another piece of news from the KEPSA presser, which we followed, they're saying that they predict the economy will suffer a 1% dip due to the polls in the next 5 days. It brings us up to the top of the hour. We're back with more news on Citizen Extra in the second hour as we take an in-depth look at the last opinion polls released by Ipsos and InfoTrack. We're talking after the break. Stay with us.